In 55 years, I've never done what I'm about to ask you to do. It's not a big deal. It's not unscriptural. Would you take your right hand and just touch your ear? And I want you to feel it. Is it warm, cool, in my case, fuzzy, soft? Do you feel the cartilage? Now, my reason for doing that, thank you. We're going to look to this morning in Revelation chapter 3, down in verse 13, he said, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. That gives us a sense of, well, God, that's how you provided me that auditory blessing. And I was moved by Tom's prayer. May God speak through me. And that's easy. I just have to repeat his word. We have started a series, and we've looked at Revelation chapter 2 and begun in chapter 3. And what God says to 7 churches, you might say, well, yeah, but, man, that's a world away and a long time. What's that got to do with me? Because he says, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Here's the Holy Spirit's message through the written word to me and you. Some of you know that my strongest suit is not directions. They laugh about it. I don't actually need a GPS to get to the grocery store if it's close enough, but I like it. But I really like good directions and where to go. And so as we look at this study, those of you who've been here every week have seen this, because I've used this every week. Those of you that maybe it's your first time or visiting, since we're going to be just looking at one church, Philadelphia. And what we're going to see is the pattern. He'll do a salutation, a saying hello, and then say something about himself that will relate to the congregation. And if there's something good about him, he'll tell them. If there's something bad about him, he'll tell them. And then encourage them, all right, on that basis, you need to do this because there's a challenge, there's a warning, and then a promise. And as we look at that, you might say, yeah, but what about chapters 4 through 22? They're more challenging, that right. But 2 and 3 are really personal. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So last 2 weeks I've mentioned if you take an airplane and fly from here to New York, get on board a steamship, sail across the Atlantic, pass the British Isles, go through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean Sea. You'll be passing Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and then make a left-hand turn into the body of water, the Aegean. That's between Greece and what is now Turkey, Asia Minor of then. So the blue is that left-hand turn into the Aegean Sea. And so you notice these churches that are cities that are listed here, and the Lord's church was in those cities. And the one we're going to look at, and it's the next to the last, is Philadelphia. And I mentioned this and mentioned it last week, that out here in the Aegean is this island. I mean, it's not like 15 square feet of sand and a palm tree. It's extensive. There's there are towns there. But John was exiled there. You weren't exiled to die, but you are not going to have an influence. You're the last living apostle. God said, yes, he is. I'm going to write letters, and it's going to be known, and it's going to impact people for the next 2,000 years. So if you think you're limited, you have health reversals and I can't. John's, 90 years old and he's on an island, and if you want to serve, limitations don't limit you. You can be of value in the kingdom somehow. And so John writes these letters, and I note there, and it's helpful for me to visualize, it's kind of in a horseshoe. We started out at Ephesus and then Smyrna and Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, and now Philadelphia. So we're going to look at Philadelphia, very faithful congregation. But like every congregation, it was set in some environment that was challenging. And so it is for us. Where we live, our state, our nation, our times, it's always challenging. It was for them and it is for us. Philadelphia is positioned on a trade route from the interior of Asia Minor to the coast. Well, once you get there, that opens up the trade opportunities to Greece, Rome, Spain, Egypt, Carthage, Britain if you wanted to. The Greek language and Roman loyalty of that city was notable. And so you think about that, here is people well tuned into their society. In addition to that, it had other elements of its, I'll say, personality. It wasn't as important as Ephesus. Ephesus, massive, nor as wealthy as Laodicea, extremely rich. But they were really solid citizens. Not necessarily on track, but really solid people. When you look at the church in Philadelphia, these are your brothers and sisters. And the value of doing that is looking what they had to go through, and we think, well, here I am, I'm just kind of bumping along, I'm kind of like a cork going down a river. I bump into rocks and salmon eye me, and I decide, nah, I'm not interested in you. But I'm just kind of floating down a river, rather than we have a mission and a purpose. And Philadelphia was told, you have a little strength. And so as we look at them, now we're going to say, let's say we've traveled inland, and we're going to be introduced to their particular valley. And Jesus greets them and simply says, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia. We've mentioned each week the word angel, angelos, simply means a messenger. Somehow, John's on Patmos, and you got to get the thing 200 miles away, and so you're going to have a messenger deliver this letter that Jesus, the Holy Spirit, wanted delivered to that congregation. It is said that as you look at their situation, a strong agricultural background, olives and vineyards, the Kogamus River for irrigation. This city wasn't on a mountaintop, but on a rise, so a good situation in a wide valley, not strongly able to be fortified. Caravans moved on Roman roads. And in AD 95, Philadelphia's population was thought to be about 20,000. Well, fair enough. But when you compare that to Ephesus of 200,000, 10 times that. Well, Ephesus is the size of Tacoma. In ancient days, that was massive. So we have the massive metropolitan complex, Silverdale. You say, well, where's Silverdale? Well, it's kind of over there. 20,000 people. That was Philadelphia. A good congregation. Solid people. They had challenges and they had opportunities, the same as us. So now we've gone from the Aegean looking inland. We've looked at the valley toward the city. Now we're inside the city. And it's just talked about how it and all the major ones would have a marketplace. If you think about Seattle and Pike Street Market, it's open. And as I've preached in different areas and countries, they'll have that. They'll have blankets set on the ground and their food and fruit and things that they're making available. This was an established city. It was not impoverished, not as wealthy as Ephesus, but a flourishing city. It had columns, fountains, Roman buildings, theater, pagan temples, Jewish synagogue. The Church of Christ was there with your brothers and sisters, along with Everything else was there like we have in our society. Well, what do you got? They had priests and soldiers and slaves and farmers and merchants and craftsmen and officials, Greeks, Romans, Jews, Africans. It was smaller, but a prosperous city. That's where your brothers and sisters were. And Jesus says, you that have an ear, listen up. What the Spirit says really to all the churches. Let's see what he says about this. First is a self-designation. So here's kind of an artist's view of a lock and a key available. It said, he who is holy. Now when you think about Isaiah 1:4, to the Holy One of Israel, it's Jesus' claim, I am deity, and I'm talking to you that has ears. As I say that, I say, wow, it's not us, Paul, it's me. Once you start taking it personally, here's what he's got to say to me. He who is holy, deity, and is true. That's a special Greek word. It doesn't mean that I tell the truth, but I am truth. I am genuine, says Louw-Nida's dictionary. Thayer says, true in every aspect. Jesus said, when I'm talking to you as deity. I am deity, communicating to my people. And I want you to know what my position is. He who has the key of David. You're familiar with Old Testament? Here was David and fought Goliath, becomes king, united the kingdom, golden age of Israel. And then it just shows here's his kingly authority. I want to tell you, I am deity. I am deity, true in every molecule of deity. And I've got the kingly authority to say what I'm about to tell you. And what I'm going to tell you, I am one who opens and no one shuts, and I'm one that shuts and no one opens. I'm the one that gives opportunities. We get comfortable and we love each other and we like being together. God says, good. There's more opportunity. Yeah, but I like staying within my four walls. It's comfortable and people like me here and it's dangerous out there. And Paul talks about himself and where he is and why he'll be there, for a great door has been opened to me for effective service. See, what we want to think about, we're talking about having another young man come in and we'll introduce him to you, see if you like, yeah, we like that kind of guy, or not, we want somebody else. And so you get to be part of the selection process. It isn't like just two guys said, we chose him, that's what you got, lump it. We're a family. And if you do, but I want you to think about it, it has been, for me, for decades, people say, well, let's give you a raise. I don't need a raise. My kids are grown up, they're flourishing, my house is paid for, my cars, I know how to fix them. And so, but guess what? The needs of a young family with 5 or 6 kids is significantly different than mine. You say, and I've talked to others in the realm. Yeah, I'm stuck in kind of a time loop back here in the 1950s kind of thing. I'm fine, and I tell people I don't need any more. You want to give me $2 million, I'll find somewhere to do it, but I don't need that kind of thing. Younger families will. And as younger families come in, that draws other younger families, and I've been telling people for decades, you get stability from older ones, you get growth from younger ones. And so really you need both. And so we're going to be looking at having another young man come in that, you know, if an ice cream truck runs me over next month, then it's not, what are we going to do? I don't know. Jeff Dillinger, man up, you're doing everything. He said, And I think to myself, nobody can do everything. This morning I was appreciating the songs, and our song leader said, having a little problem with the clicker. The other clicker, well, I should turn it on. But they're song leaders that way better than me. I was appreciating the prayers that are led. I was appreciating our broadcasting, digital stuff. I don't know how to do that. There's big, I'll say, keyboards and switchboards and cameras and computer, but it's all interconnected. I don't know that. Picture within a picture. Somebody else got to know that kind of stuff. I appreciated the men waiting on the Lord's table. Thank you. That everything is taken care of by the family. No one person can do it. Jesus said, I've set before you an open door. We've got opportunities. We're going to be talking about them the next coming months of what we can do as a group. Because what I want to see is, let's say I get run over by 2 ice cream trucks. Fair enough, save me an orange sickle and we're good. Is that this congregation just say, look, Paul, we love you. Bye. Next guy. Keep on growing, flourishing, reaching out to the people around us for the next 50 years, if God would grant the next 100 years. He said, Philadelphia, I'm giving you an opportunity to serve. And I want to commend you for something. Revelation 3 and in verse 8, he said, I know your deeds, and I have put before you an open door, which no one can shut. That is, I'm going to give you an opportunity to serve. That you have a little power. Yeah, but we're not as big as. And yeah, but the congregation on the East Coast, I mean, they're filled with doctors and lawyers and gazillions of dollars. Well, that's not us. We're just the everyday people. But we've got an opportunity to serve. We're going to be able to reach the community around us with the strength and resources that we do have. Think about that. Get prepared. God doesn't open doors for the unprepared to follow up his work. And you say, yeah, but the other guy does so much better. Never compare yourself with somebody else. That's what Samuel had to do when Jesse was showing the sons, here's all the big and strong guys, whatnot. He says, is there somebody else? I want the little guy that's stuck with the fleas and the sheep out there somewhere, right? Oh, this guy, who is it? Well, that's, David, just the youngest one of all. And they have to be told that God doesn't see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance and God looks at the heart. And so as I say that, I think of Paul and Garibaldi. Everything in the world could be wrong was wrong. The little feet in plastic booties and diabetes and septic, toxic infection and kidney failure. And she just kept trooping on. Never complained. All right, I got a few little problems. And wow. And it's just joyous. If she can, we can. And he said, Philadelphia, there's going to be an opportunity for you to serve because, and what he describes is, I know where you are. And those that call themselves Jews and are not, they are the synagogue of Satan. And in this particular one, the artist's reproduction is, you got the Star of David in the middle, but they got snakes crawling around it, so it's not really the way it ought to be. And then a representation of Satan over on the left, and he's got that occultic pentagram, that 5-pointy star, and so here's snakes all around and supposedly Christians in chains, and yet it's involving people's prosperity. And it's all the stuff. And what Jesus has to say in verse 9 is, I will cause those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not but lie, I will make them come and bow down at your feet. The idea of the synagogue of Satan, it's not Anton LaVey kind of thing in California. It's just real Jews of Israelite descent, but they're gathering, and the impact of what they're doing is benefiting Satan rather than the God of heaven. And bowing down is, they're going to acknowledge your cause is right. Why? Because some of them are going to be converted. The Apostle Paul is one of those. Such an ardent opponent and such a lifelong defender. And so there are going to be people to believe opposite things. Don't let that overwhelm you. Just say, would you like to talk about it? Let's see what the Bible has to say. And then he commends them, as we're looking at here in continuing 8 through 10. He said, because you've kept the word of my perseverance. I will also keep you from the hour of testing. I'm going to protect you from that which is about to come upon the whole world. The idea of keeping you, I'm going to guard you, I'll protect you. That's the very thing God had promised from old, and that's what Daniel read for us in Jeremiah and 29 and down in verse 18. That I have a future and a hope from you. From the hour of testing, from the Roman persecution, of which this city, Philadelphia, was part of that whole Roman Empire. And that had a temple dedicated to Caesar, as well as their other pagan gods. And so they're going to face problems, but you and they are overcomers. And when God says that, he said, now here's a warning. I am coming quickly. Well, what does that mean? Well, man, you sell your house, quit your job, get up on the housetop because Christ is coming about midnight tonight. No, that isn't the idea at all. He said, hold fast what you have, and so that no one will take your crown. The idea of coming quickly. He's going to come in judgment. There's going to be earth-shaking things that were going to be happening, like it was for Jerusalem. In Matthew 24 and verse 30, he said, I am coming. But down about verse 34 and 36, he talks about how some of you standing by shall no wise taste of death. That is, this generation shall not pass till all my words are fulfilled. It wasn't the end of the entire universe, but their world would be shaken permanently. And so between Jesus on the cross, approximately AD 30, until the destruction of Jerusalem, about 37 years. Well, to a teenager, that's 17 lifetimes. I mean, that's so far away they can hardly comprehend it. For us, that's, 500,000 years old. That's a blink of an eye. But Jesus said, I'm coming. As you read the newspapers, it's always, what is God doing with our world? And then he gives them a promise. In 3:12, he who overcomes, I will. That is, some will give in. He said, Philadelphia, don't let that be one of you. That I'll make him a pillar in the temple of my God. And he will not go out from it anymore. That is, you're visualized being a stabilizing force. Well, Paul, you make everything tick. Man, I just preach the word. Anybody can do that. And when you realize you're part of the family here, your participation is critical. We'll mention in our next slide, but that whole region had then and does have now a lot of problems with earthquakes. And so did Philadelphia. In fact, it was virtually completely destroyed. It had to be rebuilt with Roman help. And some of the people said, man, I'm not getting back in the city. I got to live outside of it because of the danger. Jesus said, I want to give you a promise. The land may be moving and shaking, but the Lord's church is going to stand. You be part of that. You be a pillar. And some of you knew Dick Rackey that died here a little over a year ago. And he had a phrase that he used up there in North Seattle. He said, some people are pillars and some are caterpillars. Some hold the church up, some just crawl in and out. And so you be one of the pillars because this is your family. They need you. We need you. And he said, if you'll do that, then in God's church, you're one of the stabilizing forces. And I'll write on him the name of my God, that you are a servant of the Most High. And the name of my city, you're part of the body of Christ. And my new name. And Revelation 14 said it'll be written on your forehead, that it's proudly displayed for everybody that my whole life is dedicated to whatever Jesus Christ wants me to do. So think about this as we wrap up. Philadelphia had been repeatedly shattered by earthquakes. And Jesus said, you'll never need to leave God's kingdom and go anywhere because you're safe right here. To a generation afraid of instability, both theirs and ours, right? Jesus said, I'll make you pillars. You are the solidifying force. Hear. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To a generation that's afraid of being insignificant, Jesus said, I'll write on you my name. You count. And I'm glad you're here. Believers don't need spectacular moments. We need covenant endurance. You count on me. I'm here. I'm here to stay. And the promise is that Christ holds the door open. And what he establishes cannot be shaken. You're part of a family that endures and will endure. We come from all different kind of backgrounds. Christian, strong, loving backgrounds, chaotic, dysfunctional backgrounds. He said, in the family of God, you're part of his family, and you're going to do just fine. You just hang in there, and you'll not be shaken. So what do? You hold fast because he is God. He is genuine. Everything else is temporary and falls away, but you and God. And when it does, you'll still be pillars. God bless this morning. If you've not been baptized into Christ, this is the family you could be part of. If you've been well-meaning but not active, what if you say, today's the day for me and my family, we'll serve the Lord. We'd love to have you part of the family, helping us grow and build for now and forever. If you'd like to respond in any way, come forward. We'll talk with you, pray with you. Brother Ben, why don't you lead us in this concluding song?